Ah, the magic of commitment. A word of caution before you get too excited about waltzing easily toward your goals. I caution you. Even with a commitment, everything won't be rosy on your path. Life will test you to see how serious you are about achieving your objective. Obstacles will arise. You'll make mistakes and suffer disappointments and setbacks, some of which may be quite severe and even tempt you to abandon your goal. That's when it becomes important to follow the sage wisdom of Winston Churchill, who said, "Never, never, never give up." Or the advice provided by James J. Corbett, "You become a champion by fighting one more round." When things are tough, you fight one more round. If you've made a commitment to accomplish a goal, you can overcome temporary defeats, and you will triumph. Commitment pays off. For aspiring novelist. A few years ago, American Way magazine carried a fascinating interview with best-selling novelist David Baldacci. Baldacci is the author of the immensely successful novels Absolute Power, Total Control, and The Winner. Millions of copies of his books have been sold. Let me assure you, however, that Baldacci was no overnight success. His accomplishments and financial achievements were the result of his total commitment to developing his talents as a writer. Like me, Baldacci started out as a lawyer. He started law school in 1983 and didn't give any thought to becoming a best-selling novelist. He simply enjoyed writing. Yet, at the outset, Baldacci knew that he didn't have the necessary writing skills. So he made a commitment, as he put it, to learn the craft of writing. For the first 5 years, he didn't finish any of his projects. Every day, he just worked on characters, plot development and other writing basics. At the time, he was a practicing lawyer, and he and his wife had 2 young children. When did he find the time to do this writing? Baldacci worked on his writing every night from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. Now, that's a commit. One person with a commitment is worth more than 100 people who have only an interest. Mary Crowley meant to do whatever it takes. He pointed out, however, that he had fun writing. It wasn't a chore. By the way, I'm not suggesting that you stay up all night to pursue your goals. That 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift certainly wouldn't work for me, and it may not work for you, either. After 10 years of writing, Baldacci had completed some short stories and a few screenplays. His total sales, 0. All that he had to show for his efforts were a lot of rejections from editors. In 1996, all of Baldacci's efforts paid off, big time. He received millions of dollars for the literary and movie rights to his blockbuster thriller Absolute Power. The star of the movie was Clint Eastwood. Such is the power of a person who is committed. He refused to quit. I've learned a lot about the magic of commitment from my good friend, Jerry Gladstone. In 1986, Jerry started his own company, American Royal Arts, selling a variety of collectibles. 1 year later, he decided to concentrate on selling animation art. He secured licenses with Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera, and other, smaller studios. But he realized that to really grow his business, he needed to sell Disney art. For 3 years, he wrote letters and called Disney headquarters requesting permission to sell Disney art. Each time, he got the same answer from Disney, no. That didn't stop Jerry. He kept contacting Disney executives. One executive finally had just about all she could take of Jerry. So she told him, "In the rewards for those who persevere far exceed the pain that must precede the victory." Ted Engstrom, a voice and tone reminiscent of Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, the evil queen from Snow White and Cruella Devil from 101 Dalmatians all rolled into one. You'll never get a Disney license. Time to give up, right? Not Jerry. Through all these rejections, he kept a great attitude. He called more executives at Disney. And then one gentleman at Disney, hoping to get rid of Jerry once and for all, said, "Well, The only two places we would consider allowing a gallery offering Disney artwork to open would be either Minnesota or Massachusetts. Jerry's business was in New York, and he had no desire to open a gallery in a remote location. Guess what Jerry did? He flew to Boston the very next day. And by the end of the day, he had signed a lease for a place on Newbury Street in Boston. He called the Disney executive to report that he had the Massachusetts location. They both had a good laugh. And then the executive said to Jerry, "If you had the courage to go up to Boston the next day and open a place just like that, we have to put you on the Disney program." Within a few weeks, Jerry opened the Boston Gallery featuring the Disney line. Within a year, he was given permission to market the Disney line through his New York store. Jerry has now done business with Disney for 10 years. He has sold millions of dollars of Disney art and is the largest volume Disney animation art dealer in the world. Talk about commitment, talk about keeping a good attitude in the face of rejection. Jerry was going to get the Disney license no matter what it took. Just ask Jerry, and he'll tell you in a New York minute that attitude is everything. As long as it takes, I'd like to share with you the story of Benjamin Roll, who lives in Newport Beach, California. In 1990, at the age of 67, Roll graduated from law school. Naturally, before he could start practicing law, he had to pass the California bar examination. On his first attempt at the examination, he failed. On his second attempt, he failed. And he failed the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time, the seventh time, the eighth time, the ninth time, the 10th time, the 11th time, the 12th time, and the 13th time. Let me add one important fact: the bar examination is given only twice each year. So, at the time of his 13th failed attempt, Roll was now 73 years old. Most people would have quit, but not Benjamin Roll. He took the exam for the 14th time, and he passed. In 1997, at the age of 74, Roll was admitted to practice law in the state of California. Now, here's a guy who's committed, and willing to do whatever it takes. As Roll explained, "I was going to pass that cotton pickin' exam if I lived long enough. And I did." Does this story tell you anything about the importance of attitude? Most people wouldn't even consider starting law school in their 60s. Yet, here's someone who not only enrolled in law school, but was willing to spend 6 years after graduation studying to pass the bar exam. Wow! Benjamin Roll's story is simply further proof that attitude is everything. Time to make a commitment now. Let's assume you have a goal in mind. The next question to ask yourself is, am I willing to do whatever it takes to achieve this goal? If your answer is, I'll do just about anything, except that I won't do, then frankly, you're not committed. And if you're not committed, it's likely that you'll be derailed and not achieve your objective. For instance, many people start a new business with this approach: I'll give it 6 months to prosper. If things don't work out after 6 months, I'll quit. This is not a mental attitude that leads to success. Where would novelist David Baldacci be if he had said, "I'll try the writing for 1 year, and if I can't sell anything, I'll give it up"? He'd have missed out on the opportunity to do what he loves, have financial independence, and live his dream. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just bowl ahead without a plan and hope for the best. Of course you should set timetables, deadlines, and budgets so you stay on course and succeed as quickly as possible. But the reality is, despite your most careful plans, you don't know how long it will take to achieve your goal, and you can't foresee all. Lesson 5: turn your problems into opportunities. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Napoleon Hill: when faced with problems or setbacks in your life, what is your immediate reaction? If you're like most people, your first impulse is to complain. Why did this have to happen to me? What am I going to do now? My plans are ruined. This response is only natural. However, after the initial disappointment wears off, you have a choice to make. You can either wallow in misery and dwell on the negative aspects of your situation, or you can find the benefit or lesson that the problem is offering. Yes, you'll probably face a period of uncertainty or struggle, but there's always a flip side to the difficulty. You see, a problem is often not a problem at all. It may actually be an opportunity. For instance, a problem may point out an adjustment you can make to improve certain conditions in your life. Without the problem, you never would have taken this positive action. For example, you probably know or have heard about someone who lost his or her job and then went on to start a successful business. Often, that person will tell you that if he or she hadn't been laid off, the new business would never have been started. What started as an adversity ended up as a golden opportunity. How about the times you were absolutely convinced that a particular job was perfect for you, you had a great interview and just couldn't wait for the offer? But the offer never came, someone else got the job. You were devastated. Days or months later a new job came along, and you realized that the first position was much less desirable than the one that came along later. The earlier rejection was, in fact, a blessing. Another example is the deal on the dream house, which falls through, only to be replaced by something even better. Finding the benefit. The New York Times printed an essay, "Is There Meaning to a Brain Tumor?" written by a 40-year-old woman named Sharon, who was told that she had a large tumor behind her left eye. The tumor was surgically removed in a 6-hour operation. Fortunately, it was benign. Can you imagine someone finding a host of benefits in this frightening situation? According to Sharon, there have been many positives. Sharon was deeply touched by the outpouring of help and support the community gave to her and her family during this crisis. People in the community, some of whom were only acquaintances, provided evening meals for her husband and their children. Her friends made arrangements for her house to be cleaned. Sharon learned about the human capacity for kindness and for helping others in time of need. Having confronted the fragility of her own life, Sharon now says that she developed a more positive attitude and is eager to accomplish the goals she set while lying in her hospital bed. She also has developed a closer, more meaningful relationship with her brother and sister. As Sharon explained, it took a personal misfortune for her to see how good life can be. She has gained a new appreciation and zest for living by overcoming a trying and difficult experience. From tragedy to triumph, the road to success often travels through adversity. Just ask entrepreneur Dave Bruno. In the 1980s, Bruno worked his way up to national sales manager for a medical equipment company. He and his wife, Marlene, and their 3 young children lived in a lovely suburban home in Milwaukee. Things were looking good. But in 1984 Bruno lost his job. And several months later, while still out of work, Dave Bruno was driving home at night when his car veered off the road and crashed. He suffered massive injuries, including collapsed lungs, broken ribs, a bruised heart, a ruptured spleen and a lacerated liver. The doctors didn't know if he would live. Bruno himself thought he was going to die. After tenuously clinging to a life support system for 3 days, he was miraculously in the clear. Bruno felt like he'd been given a second chance. No pressure, no diamonds. Mary Case. While recovering in the hospital, he started to think about what he would do with his life. Prior to the accident, and indeed for most of his life, he had collected motivational and inspirational quotes. He had learned as a youngster the amazing power quotations could hold, as his mother had a habit of strategically placing them throughout the house and on the refrigerator. They always lifted his spirits and provided direction. Suddenly, he had a flash of insight about what to do. He'd start a business to share these quotations with others, so they, too, could be inspired. But he didn't have a clue about how to do it. and after he got out of the hospital there was more bleak news. Because of astronomical medical bills and the inability to work, Bruno had to declare bankruptcy. He and his family lost their home and moved into a cramped apartment. Yet Bruno would not give up on his dream. He pushed onward, with a positive attitude and relentless determination. Over the next few years, he took jobs where he could learn about marketing and printing. He was always looking for a vehicle for his quotations. One day, an idea hit him like the things which hurt, instruct. Benjamin Franklin Nye's gold card. A ton of bricks, he'd print the quotations on credit card stock. Later that evening, he was watching TV and saw a commercial for a credit card compa. Even better, he thought. Print the quotes on metallic gold cards that people could take with them wherever they went. So, he created a series of quotations on topics such as attitude, leadership, persistence, and courage. He called them Success Gold Cards. 5 years after leaving the hospital, Dave Bruno sold his first Success Gold Card. And, I'm happy to report that he's now sold more than 2 million of those cards. Dave Bruno turned a tragic accident into an incredible triumph. Business disappointment is blessing in disguise. Now, I don't want you to think that this principle only applies to tragedies, because nothing could be further from the truth. I'd like to share a business example that reinforced my faith in this concept. In March of 1991, after an exhaustive search, I selected a company to screen print my Attitude is Everything t-shirts. In late June, I committed myself to a local and national advertising campaign to market these shirts. A serious issue developed in early July. Instead of filling an order in 2 weeks, as originally promised, the screen printer didn't fill the order for more than 5 weeks. This was unacceptable, and I decided to find another screen printer. It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. Seneca, but I'd already established my pricing and delivery terms based on discussions with the original printer. This was a major problem, right? What if I couldn't find another company to deliver a product of equal quality at or near the same price? Well, rather than get depressed and curse my rotten luck, I immediately set out to get another, better printer. Within 1 week, I found the printer I was looking for. Now, instead of having an order filled in 2 to 5 weeks, it is filled in 2 to 4 days. 8 years later, I'm still working with this vendor. Losing the first screen printer was the best thing that could have happened. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but I kept believing that I could make this seemingly bad situation turn out to my advantage. And I did. Experiences like this have taught me that when one door shuts, there is always a better one waiting to be opened. Career change emerges from frustration. My own career transition is another example of how benefits come from problems and difficulties. I was never interested in self-development materials until I had years of unhappiness after graduating from law school. I only found these principles after I'd reached a low point in my life. I now realize that all the miseries I endured were really blessings in disguise. I can see, quite clearly, how the events of my life set me up for what was to come. I had to go through the tough times and the unhappiness and to break through that low mood so I would understand the power of a positive attitude. So, when someone tells me they're discouraged, or it's obvious they have a negative attitude, I know what that feels like. I've been there. By going through some challenging times, I learn things that are invaluable to me and I can relate much better to adversity. Brings out our hidden potential. Jeff Keller. Those who hear my presentations and read my writings. And the reality is, if I hadn't grown more and more dissatisfied with my work as an attorney, I never would have been open to switching careers. If I had rated my job as a C or C-, I would have kept practicing law. I would have settled for living a C life. It's only because I was a D-, and heading for an F, that I was motivated to make a change. When someone asks me why I changed careers, I reply, without hesitation, lots of pain physically, emotionally and spiritually. And it's that pain too intense to ignore that forced me to make a decision and move in another direction. Life is now an A, and things are only getting better. Now, let's look at your life. Can you think of any situations where a seemingly negative experience turned into something positive? Maybe you were dismissed from a job, and then land at a better position. Or, perhaps you had a health problem and it caused you to change your diet or to start exercising regularly. Carefully review the difficulties and setbacks you faced and identify the benefits and lessons that came out of these experiences. The positives are there, if you look for them. How adversity serves us at this point, let's examine 7 ways in which adversity can serve us. Adversity gives us perspective. Once you've recovered from a life-threatening illness, a flat tire or a leaky roof doesn't seem so troubling anymore. You're able to rise above the petty annoyances of daily living and focus your attention on the truly important things in your life. Adversity teaches us to be grateful. Through problems and difficulties, especially those which involve loss or deprivation, you develop a deeper appreciation for many aspects of your life. It's trite but true, you don't usually appreciate something until it's taken away from you. When you have no hot water, you suddenly value hot water. Not until you're sick do you cherish good health. The wise person continues to dwell on blessings, even after the period of loss or deprivation has passed. Remember, we're always moving in the direction of our dominant thoughts, therefore, concentrating on what you have to be grateful for brings even more good things into your life. Adversity brings out our hidden potential. After surviving a difficult ordeal or overcoming an obstacle, you emerge emotionally stronger. Life has tested you and you were equal to the task. Then, when the next hurdle appears, you're better equipped to handle it. Problems and challenges bring out the best within us. We discover abilities we never knew we possessed. Many of us would never have discovered these talents if life hadn't made us travel over some bumpy ground. Adversity reveals to you your own strengths and capacities, and beckons you to develop those qualities even further. Adversity encourages us to make changes and take action. Most people cling to old, familiar patterns regardless of how boring or painful their lives have become. It often takes a crisis or a series of difficulties to motivate them to make adjustments. Problems are often life's way of letting you know that you're off course and need to take corrective action. Adversity teaches us valuable lessons. Take the example of a failed business venture. The entrepreneur may learn something that enables him or her to succeed spectacularly on the next venture. Adversity opens a new door. A relationship terminates and you go on to a more satisfying relationship. You lose your job and find a better one. In these instances, the problem is not a problem at all, but rather an opportunity in disguise. One door in your life has been shut, but there is a better one waiting to be opened. Adversity builds confidence and self-esteem. When you muster all of your courage and determination to overcome an obstacle, you feel competent and gain confidence. You have a greater feeling of self-worth and you carry these positive feelings into subsequent activities. Look for the positive. Sure, you'll have your share of problems and adversities in life. I'm not suggesting that when tragedy strikes you deny your emotions or refuse to face reality. What I am saying is don't immediately judge your situation as a tragedy and dwell on how bad off you are. Sometimes you won't be able to instantly spot the benefit that will come from being in your situation, but it does exist. You always have a choice. You can view your problems as negative and become gloomy and depressed about them. Let me assure you this approach will only make things worse. Or, you can see every seemingly negative experience in your life as an opportunity, as something you can learn from, as something you can grow from. Believe it or not, your problems are there to serve you, not to destroy you. So, the next time you suffer a problem or setback in your life, don't get discouraged or give up. Don't let problems cloud your attitude window forever. Clear off that cloudy window. You may find, after the dust settles, that you can actually see better than you did before. Just remember the words of Napoleon Hill, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Continually ask yourself what you've learned from your trying experience and focus on moving forward and growing as a person. In times of crisis, always strive to maintain an optimistic attitude and an open mind, for this is the environment that will allow you to find the benefit in your difficulty. Attitude, it really makes the difference in how we feel, how we look and how we perform in every area of our lives. That's where our effective motivational products fit in. Our unique attitude is everything. Selections will help remind you and others to have a positive attitude, the only kind worth having. Part 2. Watch your words. Repeat anything often enough and it will start to become you. Tom Hopkins. Lesson 6. Your words blaze a trail. The words you consistently select will shape your destiny. Anthony Robbins. When was the last time you seriously thought about the words you use each and every day? How carefully do you select them? Now, you might be thinking, Jeff, why all this fuss about words? What's the big deal? The answer is simple. Your words have incredible power. They can build a bright future, destroy opportunity, or help maintain the status quo. Your words reinforce your beliefs, and your beliefs create your reality. Think of this process as a row of dominoes that looks like this: thoughts, words, beliefs, actions, results. Here's how it works. Tom has a thought, such as I'm not very good when it comes to sales. Now, let's remember that he doesn't have this thought only once. Oh, no. He's run it through his mind on a regular basis, maybe hundreds or thousands of times in his life. Then, Tom starts to use words that support this thought. He says to his friends and colleagues, I'm never going to do very well in sales, or I just hate making sales calls or approaching prospects. Here again, Tom repeats these phrases over and over, in his self-talk and in his discussions with others. This, in turn, strengthens his beliefs, and it's at this stage where the rubber really meets the road. You see, everything that you'll achieve in your life flows from your beliefs. So, in our sales example, Tom develops the belief that he's not going to be successful in sales and that he won't earn much money. This becomes embedded in his subconscious mind. What can possibly flow from that belief? Because Tom doesn't believe in his sales ability, he takes very little action, or he takes actions that aren't productive. He doesn't do the things that would be necessary to succeed in sales. And then, quite predictably, Tom gets very poor results. To make matters worse, Tom then starts to think more negative thoughts, repeat more words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. Rudyard Kipling. Negative words reinforce negative beliefs, and get even more negative results. It's a vicious cycle. Of course, this whole process could have had a very happy ending if Tom had selected positive thoughts, and reinforced them with positive words. In turn, he'd reinforce the belief that he's successful in sales. As a result, Tom would take the actions consistent with that belief, and wind up with outstanding results. My point is, don't underestimate the role of your words in this process. People who feed themselves a steady diet of negative words are destined to have a negative attitude. It's a simple matter of cause and effect. You can't keep repeating negative words and expect to be a high achiever. And that's because negative words will always lead to the reinforcement of negative beliefs and eventually to negative outcomes. Why you don't want me to fix anything in your home when it comes to home repairs, I'm lost. You want me to replace a faucet or fix something in the toilet tank. I'd have a better chance of reaching the top of Mount Everest. Carpentry or electrical wiring. I haven't got a clue. You want to know my ultimate Achilles heel? It's those instruction sheets that explain how to assemble something that you've just taken out of the box. You know what I mean, those black and white booklets with references to figure 10a that show you, or claim to show you, where all the nuts and bolts go, and how all the parts fit together. Instruction sheets have the same effect on me as Kryptonite had on Superman. If you recall the old Superman programs, the villain would shoot bullets at Superman and the bullets bounced off his chest harmlessly. But there was one substance that Superman could not defend against kryptonite. Whenever the bad guy held up a piece of kryptonite, Superman got wobbly and began to lose his power. Well, when I see an instruction sheet, I get weak in the knees and lose my power. I just know it's useless for me to even look at it. There's no way I'm going to understand it. So I put down the instructions and yell for Dolores to come in and show me what to do. For Dolores, it's a piece of cake. How did it come to this? I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the world, but I consider myself to be reasonably intelligent. Am I missing some gene for home repair skills that other people were given? No, that's not it, either. The answer is quite obvious. For the last 40 years, I have repeatedly said, I'm no good at mechanical things and I can't fix anything. And, lo and behold, after 40 years of using negative words, I've developed a strong belief that I can't do these things. Do you see how I created this situation by not being careful about the words I used? And, the truth is I could eventually reverse this trend if I'd start using positive words about my ability to make repairs. Scientists' words are worth looking at. Years ago, I read an article about Kent Cullers, a scientist who headed NASA's Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence project. Cullers, who has a doctorate in physics, was developing software that searches for radio signals indicating the presence of other life forms in the universe. Sounds a little like Star Trek, doesn't it? But make no mistake about it, this is some pretty technical scientific research. And yet, Cullers has a physical challenge to contend with. Let me tell you how he describes it. He refers to his condition as a trivial affliction and just barely an inconvenience. What is Cullers' PAR in words are seen the state of mind, character and disposition of the speaker. Plutarticular physical challenge? A touch of arthritis? Or an exocyanoid migraine headache? Kent Cullers is blind. That's right, he's blind. Isn't it incredible that someone can describe blindness as a trivial affliction or just barely an inconvenience? By using these words, Kent Cullers is empowering himself to achieve great things. He doesn't give any power to his limitations and, as a result, he is able to transcend them and accomplish more than those who have their sight. What obstacles are you facing in your life right now? Imagine the power you could unleash if you saw them as just barely an inconvenience instead of as an insurmountable barrier. To tell or not to tell. When I speak about the importance of using positive language to move you toward your goals, some of you may be wondering, Jeff, do I say these positive words to myself or do I also say these words to other people? You may be afraid that if you tell others about your goals, they'll think you're being conceited and they may even laugh at you. Allow me to suggest a few guidelines in this area, with the understanding that there are no hard and fast rules and you should do what works best for you. To begin with, use positive self-talk as often as possible. In my view, the more the merrier. After all, you're talking to yourself, so you don't have to worry about others hearing your comments. The key is that you hear this positive input again and again, and it becomes deeply rooted in your subconscious mind. Whether to share your goals with other people is a much trickier issue. One thing I've learned is this: never discuss your goals with negative people. All they'll do is argue and point out all the reasons why you won't be successful. Who needs that? Often, these negative Nellies are the ones who do little or nothing in their own lives. They have no goals or dreams and they don't want anyone else to succeed, either. Yet, there are some instances when you can benefit by telling others about your goals. First of all, make sure that you're speaking with someone who's extremely positive and totally supportive of your efforts. This should be the kind of person who would be absolutely delighted if you achieved this goal, and would do anything in his or her power to assist you. You may have a friend or colleague that fits this role, or certain family members. It's also important to share your goals with others who are working with you to achieve that outcome. For example, if a sales manager wants to increase sales in the coming year by 20%, he or she would make this goal known to everyone on the staff. Then, everyone can work together to achieve it. Even though I'm encouraging you to use positive words to move you toward your objectives, I'm not suggesting that you ignore the obstacles that you may face or that you discourage feedback from other people. Before embarking on any goal, you want to prepare for what may be coming down the road. Personally, I prefer to discuss those issues with someone who is positive, someone whose feedback includes creative solutions to the difficulties that may arise. Furthermore, I'll only discuss my plans with people who are qualified to render an intelligent opinion on the subject. If you're thinking of going into your own business, it simply makes no sense to consult with your Uncle Elmer, especially if Uncle Elmer is negative and worked for someone else all of his life. What does he know about owning a business? He'll give you a list of reasons not to go into business for yourself. After your little chat with Uncle Elmer, you'll start to doubt yourself. You don't need that kind of help. Words and accountability. There's another reason why, in some cases, you might decide to share your goal with someone else. And that's for accountability. In other words, if I tell others I'm going to do something, then I have to go ahead and do it. Think of this approach as burning your bridges. Let me assure you, I'm not a believer in burning bridges when it comes to personal or business relationships. But sometimes the only way to move forward in life and to achieve an ambitious goal is to cut off all avenues of retreat. This can be a very useful strategy. We may tell a friend that we're going to work out at the gym 3 times this week, knowing that at the end of the week, this friend will ask whether we did, in fact, go to the gym 3 times. An even more dramatic example is that of well-known motivational speaker Zig Ziglar. Ziglar decided to go on a diet and reduce his weight from 202 pounds to 165 pounds. At the same time, he was writing his book See You at the Top. In the book, Ziglar included a statement that he got his weight down to 165 pounds. This was 10. The people who always talk about a lack of money generally don't accumulate much of it. Jeff Keller months before the book went to press. And then he placed an order with the printer for 25,000 copies. Now, remember, at the time he wrote these words, Ziglar actually weighed 202. He put his credibility on the line with 25,000 people. By including a statement that he weighed 165 pounds, Ziglar knew that he had to lose 37 pounds before the book was printed. And he did. Use this strategy selectively. Limit it to those goals that are very important to you and where you're committed to go the distance. Is it risky? You bet it is. But it's a tremendous motivator. Words and emotions. In his best-selling book Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins devotes an entire chapter to the way in which our vocabulary affects our emotions, our beliefs, and our effectiveness in life. I don't agree with all of Robbins' philosophies, but his observations about the power of words are right on the mark. Robbins is keenly aware of how certain words impact our emotional intensity. For instance, let's say that someone has lied to you. You could react by saying that you're angry or upset. If, however, you used the words furious, livid or enraged, your physiology and your subsequent behavior would be dramatically altered. Your blood pressure would rise. Your face would turn beet red. You'd feel tense all over. On the other hand, what if you characterized the situation as annoying or said that you were peeved? This lowers your emotional intensity considerably. In fact, saying that you are peeved, explains Robbins, will probably make you laugh and break the negative emotional cycle completely. You'd be much more relaxed. Robbins gives other examples. Choose words that will point you in the direction of your goals. Jeff Keller of How You Can Lower the Intensity of Negative Emotions. Imagine, for instance, replacing "I've been destroyed" with "I've been set back," or using the phrase "I prefer" instead of "I hate." Of course, you can also intentionally select words to heighten positive emotions. Instead of saying "I'm determined," why not say "I'm unstoppable"? Or, in place of declaring that you feel okay, try "I feel phenomenal," or "I feel just tremendous." Juicy, exciting words like that lift your spirits to a high level and profoundly influence those around you. When you consciously decide to use such terms, you're actually choosing to change the path on which you've been traveling. Others will respond to you differently, and you'll alter your perception of yourself, as well. A closer look at your words. Let's take a look at your life for a moment. Are there any areas where you've been using phrases like "I can't," "I'm no good at," and "it's impossible"? We all know people who make statements like these: "I can't draw," "I'm no good at math," "I can't remember names," "It's impossible for me to make that kind of money." When you make these comments day in and day out for 10, 20, or 30 years, you're programming your mind for failure. It all comes back to your attitude. Every one of these examples reflects a negative attitude. And if you see the world through a smudged window, you're going to use negative language, and get disappointing results. Fortunately, you can control your words, which means that you have the ability to build a positive belief system, and to produce the results you want. The first step is awareness. Let's examine the phrases you've been using in 4 key areas of your life: relationships, finances, career, and health. Relationships. Do you say things like "all the good men," or "women are taken," or "people are always taking advantage of me"? If you do, you're literally programming yourself for unhappy relationships. Your mind hears every word you speak, and it sets out to prove you right. With regard to our above examples, your mind will see to it that you attract only those persons who will disappoint you or take advantage of you. Is this what you want? If not, stop repeating, and causing your mind to focus on, such negative statements. Finances. What words do you use on a regular basis to describe your current financial situation and your prospects for the future? Phrases such as "I'm always in debt," "the economy is lousy," or "no one is buying," work against you. Far better to choose language which reaffirms prosperity and better economic times. Of course, you won't necessarily have abundant wealth within a few days after changing the way you speak. But the physical conditions can change only after your beliefs have altered. Clearing up your language is an important first step. After all, the people with wealth in this world didn't get that way by moaning about being in poverty. And the people who always talk about a lack of money generally don't accumulate much of it. Career. If I were to ask you about your career prospects over the next 5 to 10 years, how would you respond? Be honest. Would you say that things will probably remain the same as they are now? Or would you describe a higher position with more challenges, more responsibilities, and increased financial rewards? If you respond, "I don't know where I'm going in my career," chances are not much will change. Your language reflects your lack of vision and direction. If, on the other hand, you have a clear goal which you can, and do, articulate fairly often, even if only to yourself, you stand an excellent chance of reaching that goal. The same, of course, holds true if you have your own business. Do you use language that is consistent with the growth of your business? Or do you constantly talk about how you'll never get to the next level? Health. Without question, our words have a profound impact on our health. For example, imagine that a group of us sat down to what seemed to be a perfectly wholesome and delicious meal. Then, 2 hours later I called and told you that every person who ate with us had been rushed to the hospital and treated for food poisoning. Suppose that you felt perfectly fine before I called. How would you react after hearing my information? Most likely, you'd clutch your stomach, get pale and feel very ill. Why? Because my words instilled a belief in you which, in turn, your body started acting upon. This same bodily reaction would have occurred even if I was playing a cruel joke and was lying about the whole situation. Your body responds to words it hears you and other people say. That's why it makes absolutely no sense to keep repeating that you have chronic back pain that will never go away or that you get 3 or 4 bad colds every year. By uttering these statements, you are actually instructing your body to manifest pain and disease. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting that you deny pain or disease or that you can overcome any illness, but there's certainly nothing to be gained, and much harm that can flow, from using language that reinforces suffering and incurability. You have a choice. Well, have you thought about the words you use in these 4 areas of your life? When we repeat certain phrases over and over, it's as if a groove is formed in our brain. We keep replaying the same old refrain in our heads like a broken record. The trouble is, whenever you say these words you just deepen the groove, replaying the same old myths in your mind, strengthening the same old beliefs, and getting the same old results. Recognize, however, that just because you've said things in the past there's no reason to blindly continue doing so. While it takes some discipline and vigilance on your part to make changes in your language, it's well worth the effort. So, from now on, consciously choose words that will point you in the direction of your goals. Ask a friend to remind you when you slip. Remember, it's up to you to speak in a way that will move you toward what you want in life. Therefore, use words that are consistent with the path you truly wish to be on, take action along those lines, and watch yourself begin to travel in that wonderful direction. Lesson 7. How are you? Your day goes the way the corners of your mouth turn. Unknown. Our answer to the question how are you? Seems like such a small thing. But we must answer that question at least 10 times a day and perhaps as many as 50. So it's not a small thing at all. It's a significant part of our daily conversations. When someone asks how are you? What do you say? Your answer is usually no more than a few words. And yet, that short response tells a lot about you and your attitude. In fact, your response can literally shape your attitude. I've observed that the responses to how are you can be classified into 3 categories: negative, mediocre, and positive. Let's examine these 3 categories and some common responses under each one. Negative responses. The negative replies to how are you include phrases such as, lousy, terrible, I'm tired, it's not my day, thank God it's Friday, a day older and a dollar broker. Don't ask. When someone responds with don't ask, I know I'm in for trouble. That person is going to unleash a multitude of complaints and make me sorry for asking how are you in the first place. And I really pity those who take the thank God it's Friday approach to life. Think of what they're saying. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are bad days every week. For these people, 4/5 of their work week is lousy. The 5th day, Friday, is bearable only because they know they'll have the next 2 days off. Is this a way to live your life? Are you beginning to see how these negative phrases can poison your attitude, and turn off other people? Mediocre responses. Those in the mediocre group are a step up from the negative bunch, but they still have plenty of room for improvement. Here are some of the things they say: I'm okay. Not too bad. Could be worse. Same old, same old. Hangin' in there. Fine. Do you really want to spend a lot of time with someone who thinks that life is not too bad? Is that the person you want to do business with? When we use words like these, we also diminish our energy. can you imagine someone saying could be worse with an upright posture, and a lot of enthusiasm? Of course not. These people sound like they haven't slept in 2 days. There's no getting around it. People who use mediocre words will develop a mediocre attitude, and get mediocre results. And I know you don't want that. Positive responses then, there's the positive approach. These are the enthusiastic people who say, terrific, fantastic, great, excellent, super, I'm on top of the world. It doesn't get any better. Those who use positive words like these have a bounce in their step and you feel a little better just by being around them. Be honest. How did you feel as you read the positive list? I don't know about you, but I'm energized and excited as I review that list. These are the people I look forward to meeting today. These are the people who are more likely to get my business. Why not go back and reread the negative list and the mediocre list? Say them out loud. How do they make you feel? Bummed out, for sure. A smile is an inexpensive way to improve your looks. Unknown, you see, if given the choice, I'd rather be around people who are positive and full of life, as opposed to those who are negative and listless. It's like the old saying that everybody lights up a room, some when they walk into the room, and some when they walk out. You want to be the one who lights up a room when you walk in. As for me, when someone asks me how are you, I usually respond with terrific. It projects a positive attitude to the other person, and the more I say it, the more I feel terrific. Join the positive group. Well, you've had a chance to review some typical responses in each category: negative, mediocre, and positive. Which of these phrases do you use most often? Which responses do your friends and family use? If you find yourself in the negative or mediocre group, I suggest you immediately consider revising your response and joining the ranks of the positive. Here's why. When you're asked how are you, and you say horrible or not too bad, your physiology is adversely affected. You tend to slump your shoulders and head and take on a depressed posture. What about your emotions? After stating that you're lousy, do you feel better? Of course not. You feel even more down in the dumps because negative words and thoughts generate negative feelings, and eventually, negative results. And it's up to you to break it. Even if real circumstances in your life persuaded you to state that you're lousy, perhaps a promising business deal fell through, or your child received poor grades in school, your gloomy attitude does nothing to improve the situation. To make matters worse, your mediocre or negative reply turns others off. They're dragged down just being around you and hearing your pessimism. Form a new habit. If all of these negative consequences flow from your words, why do you continue to say them? More than likely, it's because you haven't recognized that you have a choice in the matter. Instead, you're following a habit that you developed many years ago, a habit that no longer serves you. In the end, your own words are a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say everything is terrible, your mind is attracted to those people and circumstances that will cause that statement to be true. If, on the other hand, you repeatedly state that your life is wonderful, your mind will begin to move you in a positive direction. For instance, just consider what happens when you respond that you're excellent or terrific. As you say these words, your physiology begins to correspond with your optimistic language. Your posture is more upright. Other people are attracted to your energy and vitality. Your business and personal relationships improve. Will all of your life's problems magically disappear? No, but you've set in motion a very important principle: we get what we expect in life. Say you are well, or all is well with you, and God shall hear your words and make them come true. Ella Wheeler Wilcox. I can tell you from first-hand experience that this is one of those little things in life that makes a big difference. About 15 years ago, when someone asked me how are you, I'd say something like okay with very little energy. You know what I was doing? I was programming myself to have okay relationships with people. I was programming myself to have okay success. I was programming myself to have an okay attitude, and an okay life. But then, thank goodness, I learned that I didn't have to settle for an okay life. So I picked up my response a few notches and began to say terrific. I said it with some energy. Why? Sure, at first it was a little uncomfortable. Some people looked at me like I was a little strange. But after about a week, it started to come naturally to me. And I was amazed at how much better I felt, and how people were much more interested in talking with me. Believe me, this is not rocket science. You don't need talent, money, or good looks to have a great attitude. You just need to get in the habit of using a high energy, positive response, and you'll get the same exciting results I got. What if I don't feel terrific? Whenever I do a presentation and recommend to the audience that they give a very upbeat response to how are you? Someone always comes up to me afterward and says, what if I really don't feel terrific? I don't want to lie to my friends and coworkers by telling them everything is wonderful when it isn't. Now don't get me wrong. I put the highest value on integrity, and telling the truth. Yet, I don't think this is a matter of telling the truth. Let me explain. Assume for a moment that Sally feels tired. When someone at work asks her how are you? She wants to be perfectly honest, so she says, I'm tired. Here's what will happen. Sally will reinforce the belief that she's tired. She'll feel even more fatigued. She'll probably slump her shoulders and let out a sigh. She'll have a lousy, unproductive day at work. And let's get back to the person who asked Sally the question and who probably a cloudy day is no match for a sunny disposition. William Arthur Ward regrets it now. That person also feels worse. After all, when someone tells you how tired she is, do you feel uplifted? No way. Just the suggestion of the word tired and you start yawning. So, Sally has brought herself down, as well as her co-worker. Okay, Sally goes home after her grueling day, and now she's exhausted. So she plops into her favorite chair and opens the newspaper to look at the winning lottery number bears. As she pulls her own ticket out of her wallet, she discovers that she's holding the winning ticket. She just won $10 million. What do you think Sally would do? Remember, she's very tired. You and I both know that Sally would leap out of her chair, be jumping up and down, screaming and waving her arms in the air. You'd think she was leading an aerobics class. Naturally, she'd run to pick up the phone to call her family and friends. She'd be a bundle of energy and would probably stay up all night celebrating, and planning what to do with the money. But wait a second. 10 seconds ago, this woman was exhausted. Now, she's got the energy of a 15-year-old cheerleader who has just been told she made the cheerleading squad. What happened in those 10 seconds to change someone from being utterly exhausted, to wildly exuberant? Did she get a shot of vitamin B12? Did anyone throw a bucket of ice water in her face? No. Her transformation was entirely mental. Now I'm not trying to diminish what Sally was feeling. Her fatigue was very real, but it wasn't as much physical as mental. So, was Sally telling the truth when she said she was tired? It really has very little to do with the truth. It's a matter of what Sally chose to focus on. She could concentrate on feeling tired. That was one option. On the other hand, she could have thought about the many blessings in her life and felt very fortunate and energized. How we feel is very often a subjective matter. When we tell ourselves that we're tired, we feel tired. When we tell ourselves that we feel terrific, we feel energized. As you'll recall from lesson 2, we become what we think about. Respond with enthusiasm for the next month, Try this experiment. When anyone asks how are you, whether it's someone at work or a cashier at the store, respond with energy and enthusiasm that you're great or terrific. Say it with a smile and a sparkle in your eye. It doesn't matter whether or not you completely and totally feel terrific at that moment. Simply apply the act as if principle. In other words, if you want to be more positive, act as if you already are, and, pretty soon, you'll find that you have, in fact, become more positive. Don't worry if you feel a little uncomfortable saying these words at the beginning. Stick with it and eventually you'll grow into it. You'll quickly notice that you feel better, that others want to be around you, and that positive results will come your way. By the way, how are you? I can almost hear you say terrific.